Hello viewers, today we are going to be studying about a topic which is of interest to every human being. Intelligence, something that all of us wish to possess in high quantities, but unfortunately is unequally distributed among the human race. Intelligence is the sum total of cognition. It is a cognitive ability. Surprisingly, the term intelligence was not much in use till the 1880s. It was then that Sir Francis Galton made it popular in his writings on the nature of intelligence. Since then, this topic has been subject to intensive research, theoretical pronouncements, and often heated and passionate debate. Even after 100 years of scrutiny, theoreticians and researchers have not yet come to a conclusion about many basic issues regarding intelligence. What then is this ability, intelligence? Is it the ability to think and reason, to use logic, to write and speak clearly, to be able to do well in school and college? Is it our behavior in social situations? It is very difficult to decide whether it is any one of these or the sum total of all this. So today we will be going through and trying to understand the nature of intelligence. We will also try to define this elusive concept, and then we will look at the history of intelligence movement. Intelligence is like electricity. It is very easy to measure, but almost impossible to define. Different societies view intelligent behavior in different ways. As in the United States and most of the developed countries, verbal fluency is thought to be a good indicator of intelligence. In Africa, on the other hand, expert hunting or survival skills will take precedence over verbal ability as an indicator of intelligence. In the Pacific Islands, maybe sea navigation skills will top the list of intelligent behavior. So we can see that different societies view intelligence as something which is very different. Intelligence, unlike height, weight and age, cannot be measured directly. It has to be inferred from the behavior and acts of people and comparing them to each other. Many scholars and researchers have tried to define intelligence. The standard definition of intelligence, which most people know, is the one given by Wechsler, who defines intelligence as the global or aggregate capacity of an individual to act purposefully, think rationally, and deal effectively with his environment. So we can see from this definition that it is definitely not one ability, but many things put together. If we look at some of the definitions, some of the factors which define intelligent behavior include abstract thinking, learning from experience, solving problems through insight, adjusting to new situations, and focusing and sustaining one's abilities in order to achieve a goal. If we look back at the history of the intelligence movement, we can see that intelligence has been defined in the early days as our intellectual potential and something which we are born with, something that can be measured, and a capacity that is difficult to change. In recent years, however, other views of intelligence have emerged. So, let us go back and look at the history of the intelligence movement, which is closely woven with the intelligence testing movement. In the early 20th century, intelligence was defined as consisting of thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. Since the 1970s, the concept of intelligence has been broadened to include other skills and abilities which are important for success in any given culture. The beginnings of interest in intelligence can be traced back to the early 19th century, when there was an upsurge interest in the humane treatment of the mentally retarded children. In 1866, Seguin pioneered the training of the mentally retarded. One of the outcomes of this, apart from a special school for the mentally retarded, was the development of what was one of the first tests of intelligence, which is the Seguin Form Board, which could be used to find out whether a child had normal intelligence or not. But if we look at the history of intelligence movement from the viewpoint of psychology, we need to start from 1869, when it was Sir Francis Galton who began the study of individual differences. Sir Francis Galton believed that intelligence was innate and was the product of evolutionary forces. He looked at intelligence as a general cognitive ability, the ability to understand and deal with people, things, and symbols. He became very interested in finding out whether his idea that intelligence runs in family was true or not. Using different methods, he collected information and wrote a book, one of the several books that he wrote, titled Hereditary Genius, in which he established the fact that intelligence is indeed inherited and runs in families. Galton was a very talented person. He gave to us, he has many firsts to his credit. He was the one who used surveys. He was the one who looked at twins as a means of studying the influence of heredity and environment. He coined the term eugenics, which promoted the idea that society should take active steps towards improving its genetic material. But he also believed that women were intellectually inferior to men, which some of us may not agree with. So Galton contributed a lot to the intelligence movement. His ideas are no longer in vogue. His findings were said to be not very scientific, but still he was the person who really established the foundations for the intelligence movement. Following Galton, in 1904, there were two parallel movements. Alfred Binet, along with Simon, was requested by the French government to develop a test which would be able to distinguish people with normal intelligence and people with below normal intelligence. Binet also believed that people who had intelligence, low levels of intelligence, could be trained and their levels of intelligence could be improved. So, in order to identify children in need of this special education or training, he developed a test which became the first ever intelligence test to be used and was the prototype for all the future tests of intelligence. He defined intelligence as the ability of an individual to direct his behavior toward a goal, to make adaptations in his goal-oriented behavior when necessary to know when he has reached the goal. Comprehension, invention, direction, and censorship. Intelligence lies in these four words, according to Binet. He coined the term mental level, which later came to be known as mental age. At the same time, in 1904, Charles Spearman gave us the first systematic theory of intelligence. He believed that intelligence was a super ability which aided performance in virtually every mental task. He called this super ability G, or general intelligence, and he likened it to a fountainhead from which all the other specific abilities flow like a river. He also believed that intelligence was inherited and that it was distributed unequally in humans and partly accounts for individual differences in prowess. His concept of G has been the basis for most of the traditional tests of measuring intelligence. In 1916, Louis Terman, who was in America, took the Simon Binet test, modified it, added to it the concept of IQ, which was given by William Stern in 1912, and produced the Stanford Binet test, which is in use even today. Terman believed intelligence was an individual's ability to carry on abstract thinking, to use abstract symbols in the solution of all kinds of problems. He was a vocal proponent of the hereditarian view of intelligence. He was the first one to put the concept of IQ into practice, and thus was born the formal mental testing movement. Terman was interested in special children at both ends of the continuum. He was especially interested in children whom he believed were gifted, and he conducted a longitudinal study on gifted children, which has become one of the most well-known studies in this area. These students who took part in this study were primarily white American children, and they were affectionately known as termites. Terman believed that America should be a meritocracy and that every individual should be trained at their level and given an opportunity to improve their levels of intelligence. In 1938, Thurston, who was against the G factor which Spearman had put forward, used factor analysis and found that there was no evidence for a single general mental ability in intelligence. He believed that human intelligence is a composite of 7 primary mental abilities, and that each of these ability was independent. So, if we wanted to find out the intelligence of an individual, we would need to measure each of these abilities. Some of his ideas are present in the modern day approach to intelligence, which looks at it as a collection of abilities rather than as one ability. In 1940, Cattell gave us another view of intelligence. He said that intelligence consisted of fluid and crystallized intelligence. Fluid ability is the ability to solve problems where prior experience and knowledge are of little use, and here heredity plays an important role. Crystallized knowledge, on the other hand, depends on education and experience, which develops over time. This type of intelligence shows greater effects of family and cultural environment. These ideas were further developed by Horn, and it was also established that fluid ability declines with age faster than crystallized knowledge. Till the 1950s, the psychometric view of intelligence, which stressed on intelligence as a general ability, held sway. It was only in 1983 that a new concept was given to us by Gardner. Gardner looked at intelligence as the capacity to solve problems or to fashion products that are valued in one or more cultural setting. His theory was based on biology as well as culture. According to Gardner, all societies value different types of intelligence. He said that everyone was born possessing multiple intelligences, and in his theory of multiple intelligences, he outlined 7 different kinds of intelligence. We can see the echo of Thurston's ideas in Gardner's theories, but the kind of abilities that Gardner defined were very different from that of Thurston. Gardner said that though we are born with these 7 different kinds of abilities, each child will have different strengths and weaknesses in each of these, which are developed by the society and the intellectual climate. In 1988, Sternberg came out with his triarchic theory of intelligence, which was very different from the theories which had been put forth till this time. He looked at intelligence as a mental activity directed toward purposive adaptation to and selection and shaping of real world environments relevant to one's life. His theory is based on information processing model of cognition. Of the 3 factors which he outlined in his triarchic theory, the factor of practical intelligence has received the most attention and has been researched widely. Practical intelligence is what he called street smarts. He believed that this kind of intelligence or street smarts is the one which predicted success in life, but it has a surprisingly low relationship to academic intelligence. The latest neurobiological approaches look at intelligence as directly related to brain functions. Included among these are processing speed, which shows that there is a strong correlation between reaction time and IQ. Brain volume also is found to be positively correlated with intelligence. Apart from that, the number of neurons and the amount of connectivity together enhance the types of processing required for high ability. These findings have not yet been established and are in their infancy. Intelligence is, as we can see, a general mental capability that involves the ability to reason, to plan, to solve problems, to think abstractly, comprehend complex ideas, learn quickly and learn from experience. This is indeed complex and very well defines the complex nature of intelligence. But why is it that we all hanker after this intelligence? Let's look at some of the practical reasons why everybody wants to have intelligence. Intelligence is closely related to many important educational, occupational, economic and social outcomes. High levels of intelligence are an advantage in life because virtually all activities require reasoning and decision making. Having high intelligence is more important the more complex the job people do. Personality traits, talents, aptitudes and physical capabilities are important in many jobs, but none of them are as important as intelligence. The group tests of intelligence, which were being used during the world wars, were a great success, and using these tests, the people who were being recruited could be placed in different sections of the army, which required different kinds of intelligence. In 1955, Wechsler, whose definition has become the standard definition of intelligence today, gave to us the first adult intelligence scale. Till now, most of the tests were to be used with children. The Wechsler scale also had a difference from the earlier scales. It did not yield just one IQ score, but yielded different scores for performance as well as for verbal tests of intelligence.